Alright, you guys, so this video you're watching now, this little short little intro, this is, right now it's November 15th. And then right after this thing cuts, we're going to be going back to November 13th. So right now, it's just a little glimpse of the future. I'm letting you know there are 4 videos to this segment. You have, if you're going to watch episode 1, of these my newest updates, there's 4 parts to it. In total, you have about 8 to 9 hours worth of viewing material ahead of you. So I'm saying if you're going to dive into any of this, you need to make sure you start from the beginning and you're not starting from part 2 or part 3 or part 4. If you're clicking on part 2 or part 3 or part 4 and you haven't watched part 1, you need to go all the way to part 1 and start from the beginning and not start later. Otherwise, you're not going to have any idea what I'm talking about. So this is just a little heads up, and I'm going to add this at the beginning of part 1, part 2, and part 3 and part 4 just to let you know you need to go to the beginning. So there you go. Yeah, so there you go. Alright, we're resuming forward. It's been about an hour since I cut. I needed to take a break and get my mind organized and took him for a walk. So it's 1:30 in the afternoon now. Resuming from where the last cut was, I spent those 2 days panhandling, right? And it was around, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday when I was really catching on to Malaki's coughing and gagging and acting like he's just got issues going on. And it was around, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, when I did catch on to that, I went and threw that away, and then I started having this dialogue, just this energy coming into me, this frequency, and then having just this going through my own thoughts about how everything had been played out, and just cueing it. I really cued in on that second day that I panhandled, where these people, at first it was that guy that claimed to be Coast Guard, and then the other guy that showed up right after, and they both showed up right at the end, right when I was about to go pack up. Okay, so that was what was really sticking out to me. Okay, so that was just remember that. That's the key point. And then, the fact that I went and threw it away, and then after I threw it away, Malaki's symptoms kind of alleviating, where he wasn't coughing and gagging as much, okay? So that Thursday, I believe it was that Thursday and Friday. On Thursday, I ended up leaving Page. I ended up driving northwest about like 40, I don't know, it was like 30 miles outside of Page, and I went out into the desert, and I went pretty much found a place to camp for 2 nights. So I showed up, I found a pretty cool area to hang out in. It was this big elevated area where I could just see a long distance in all directions. I got some pictures, I'll share a few of them. And that's where I stayed for 2 days, and then the 2 nights, and then on that 3rd morning, I got up before sunrise and drove back to Page. So during that time I was out in the desert, I had internet connection, so I was essentially, I took Malaki on some bike rides, went walking around a little bit, but otherwise I was essentially just sitting tight. I was just, I had my lawn chair, so I was either sitting outside in the sun, just taking in the landscape, and then I was watching YouTube videos, or I was praying, just meditating / praying, having a dialogue as far as talking to God, talking to whoever's listening, praying and talking to them as far as what's currently on my plate. And I did, I maintained that for 2 days, 2 days, and then I left the third morning. Nothing really strange happened those 2 days, those 2 full days that I was there. The only kind of thing that really stands out was it was like during the afternoon, my second day there, some county sheriff deputy in a truck, like a police truck, came out of nowhere. I didn't even hear him coming, but he just came out of nowhere, and he drove right past me, went up to the next camp. Like, there's another spot that was probably about 50 yards from my spot, on a little bit on this hill, and he drove straight up there, and he parked. So he was parked, and from where he was at, he could probably look down and see my van and see me sitting there, and he just sat there for 10 minutes or so, 10 or 15 minutes. I didn't see, I could see that his driver's door was open, but I never saw the officer get out or walk around. but I could see his vehicle from where I was sitting. I could see the top half of his vehicle. So who that officer was or the deputy was, I don't know. Why he was there, I don't know. He could have just been up there because he was on patrol and he needed to pull over somewhere to work on his computer or something. I don't know. He could have just been doing that, but he also might have been there because somebody told him to go there, and he just made his presence known. And then at some point, he fired up his truck, and then he went back down the little hill, and then he disappeared. And as he was coming back down, I waved at him. But I mean, I couldn't see him because he was a little too far away in the glare from the sun. I couldn't see through his windshield. And so I couldn't tell if he waved at me back or what. But that was only the kind of strange thing. He showed up, sat there for a little bit. So, if he knew who I was, well, he didn't come after me, so that was a good thing. He didn't come after me, so that's a good sign. But just the fact that he made his presence and then left, it was enough to kind of just make you scratch your head. Was that just him pulling up there because he had something to do on his computer or whatever, or because he's busy with work, or is he making his presence known for a specific reason? Like, I might not know the reason, but if there's other eyes watching and they saw him go there, well, maybe it was just him. Maybe he might have been communicating something to me. Maybe he might have been trying to intimidate me. Or I don't know. I don't have that answer. I just know there was the experience. He showed up. And then my energy is, once I noticed him pull up, of course my energy is, because I'm out in the middle of nowhere. I'm by myself. There's nobody else around as far as I can see in any direction. And it's just me and then this officer, and anything could happen if he had been given instructions to do anything. He could have approached me and asked me anything. He could, if I had a warrant, he could have, ran my name or ran my license plate, had my name, and then found out I had a warrant, and then I could have disappeared. But that never happened. So, but just my energy, when I noticed him, my energy was tuned into his existence and his energy field. He's there, I'm there. He's not far away. Anything can happen. I don't know. But eventually he left, and then it's okay. And then it was like the next morning I left. I slept there that night. And then the next morning, I got up before sunrise, and I drove all the way back to Page, and I got to Page right as the sun was coming up. And then once the sun was up, I think I drove straight to the public library, parked, got my bike out of the vehicle, and I took Malaki on like a 4-mile bike ride. So I took him on a big bike ride, and then by the time I got back, it was just like not coincidence, but it was just like good fortune for me. It was like that Friday, or no, that Saturday, Sunday, Monday, there was the Page Hot Air Balloon Festival, whatever the official name was, but there was a giant hot air balloon festival taking place in Page, and there was like anywhere between like 60 and 80 hot air balloons. Right, and so as soon as I get into Page that morning, I could see all these people setting up, getting ready to launch their hot air balloons, but the balloons weren't inflated yet. Everybody was staging and getting their equipment and everything laid out. And so by the time I had taken Malaki for his bike ride and had returned back to the public library, there were hot air balloons taking off into the sky. This is shortly after sunrise, so all the lighting's pretty cool. And the public library in Page is on this elevated hill, so you can look down, and so the balloons are coming up, and you can just see all these balloons, and then all the red rock and canyons and everything in the background. Really cool. I actually went back to my van and got the camera, my nice DSLR camera, and I ended up standing out there watching the balloons for like an hour and a half or so, and ended up taking a bunch of pictures. And then while I was taking pictures, some other guy came out of nowhere, and him and I ended up just getting in a conversation where I was taking pictures and he was just standing next to me, and we were just in a conversation. And then we actually maintain our conversation for probably half an hour, and then I ended up telling him I wanted to go get a different angle. Like I wanted to walk down this trail a little bit to get a different angle on the hot air balloon so I could get different pictures. And this guy follows me, so he follows me to this new spot, and we just continue chatting. And I wasn't getting any bad vibes from him. Our conversation, it was all small talk, nothing really. I wasn't telling him anything about my life or my situation. I was just small talk. not giving away my personal info too much, and then he was just telling me random stuff about his life, and we just talked randomly, just random conversation for probably 45 minutes or an hour while I took pictures. And then I eventually left, right? Eventually left, got out of there. I felt like it was a pretty good interaction. He didn't seem like somebody that might be on the bad side. He might have been a friend he might have been a friendly, but, he was just treating me anonymously. He was treating me, he might have known exactly who I was, but he didn't acknowledge it. So we were just having an anonymous conversation. If he knew who I was, well, he didn't let on to it, and we just talked, having a pleasant, respectful, normal conversation just about traveling and what he's been up to, going on hikes and stuff. So cool. If that was the good guys, just a little motivational booster, or there's a whole bunch of eyes watching, and people are just wanting to see how I interact with strangers, and they could see that I'm a friendly person. Cool. That could have been a thing. Okay, I don't know, but that was pretty much. That was like the longest interaction I've had with anybody for a long period of time, as far as me just having it wasn't a real conversation, but a conversation with somebody that went longer than 20 minutes. Like, it's been a long time since I've actually had a conversation with anybody. So that was a thing. Okay, so nothing really too extreme. As far as I remember, nothing weird happened that day. Nothing that really stands out that I can remember. The whole time, every night that I was in Page, when it came to nighttime and sleeping, I was going down to the Walmart parking lot, and there was a corner in the Walmart parking lot in Page is pretty big, and there was a corner in that parking lot where there was a lot of people sleeping there. There's all kinds of RVs, travel vans, pickup trucks with fifth wheel trailers, small trailers too. All kinds of people that were, there were a few nights there there was probably like 30 separate vehicles with people that were sleeping there at nighttime, and I was right in the middle of all of them. So essentially, from a strategic perspective, I put myself right there. So if there's any bad guys, well, they're not going to be able to do anything to me, because not only is there cameras, but there's also a lot of witnesses. So my entire time in Page, I just kept sleeping in the Walmart parking lot every night, and not one single night did anything bad happen, right? So, if I had good guys on my side, and I had people, that are anonymously hiding in plain sight who are on my side, and they have their own vans, travel vehicles or something, and they're literally parked in the Walmart parking lot with me, and I don't know about them, but they have eyes on me, and they're keeping eyes out for any bad guys roaming around or lurking, and they're dealing with it. That's a thing. That might be a thing. I don't know, but I stayed in the Walmart parking lot every single night, strictly from a safety and strategic standpoint, rather than going out to random places. I was shutting off the bad guy's ability to really do anything to me, because there's cameras and there's a whole bunch of people around me as witnesses. So that's how I was operating in Page. So that was Saturday, right? That happened Saturday as far as with the hot air balloon festival. Like, I had went out into the desert for a couple of days, and then I came back to Page that Saturday morning. And then there was the hot air balloon festival going on like the next 2 days, like Saturday and Sunday. And then, on Sunday, like, my plan was to do some more panhandling on Sunday and Monday, because, I had originally said I was planning on staying in Page for a week to 2 weeks. Well, the longevity of how long I was going to stay in Page was really dependent on the weather, like the temperature and the weather patterns. And after my first week, when I was looking at like the 7-day forecast, the weather patterns were changing, where rather than being in the 70s, it was going to start getting a little bit colder, and it was going to start reaching freezing temperatures, right around freezing temperatures at nighttime. And then when I was comparing the temperatures in Page compared to like Sedona, the temperatures in Sedona were much more favorable, where it's not going to get as cold at night compared to Page. The temperatures are going to get a little bit warmer during the daytime compared to Page. And then also looking forward, it looked like just the weather was going to kind of shift. So that was something where I was really taking into consideration how long I was going to be in Page. Well, if the temperatures drop in Page and they look good in Sedona, well, it would be a good incentive for me to just head down that way, a little bit ahead of schedule. I was wanting to come to Sedona, come into Sedona around December rather than November, but it was just kind of looking, that's how I was just going to end up getting here a little early. And then so as I was looking forward, okay, I'm going to be going to Sedona soon, and the money that I earned the previous Sunday and Monday, I still had money left, but I had already spent probably 70 or 80% of it because I had to fill my gas tank a few times, and I had to buy groceries, and there were a few things I had to buy as essentials that, I pretty much spent most of that money as soon as I got it because I needed it. I had to. It was just I had to restock some of my stuff. And so I'm looking forward, okay, well, if I go all the way to Sedona, that's going to be, it's a 2.5 hour drive, so that's like 130 miles or something. And so I was like, well, it's going to cost me probably close to a full tank of gas to make it to Sedona, because my tank's only like 11 gallons. It's not a big fuel tank. And so that's going to cost me about $40. So I got, that whatever money I do have, all of that's going to go towards my fuel cost just to get down there. And then I was like looking forward, okay, well, I'm going to need X amount of money. So once I do get to Sedona, I'll be able to pay for my fuel and my food hopefully for at least the next week, right? So just trying to think strategically, okay, I need to panhandle at least today. The Sunday, what was it? I wrote little notes down just so I could stay on track. But Sunday, November 1st, and Monday, November 2nd, I chose Sunday and Monday to do another. I plan. Okay, I'll stand out on the street for another hour and a half. I'll set my clock, and whatever I can make in an hour and a half, that's what I'll take on Sunday, and then I'll do it again on Monday. Whatever I can make in an hour and a half, I'll set my clock. Whatever I get, cool. And then eventually I'll either leave the following day or the day after because the temperatures are changing, and it's calling for me. The energy's telling me it's about time to just move on to Sedona. It's coming up. And then at the same time, the United States elections were coming up, so that was on November 5th. So that was a thing that was in the back of my mind, was that, okay, the elections are coming up. Maybe from a strategic standpoint, I should probably get out of Page and get to my, Sedona in my mind has always been my final destination this is as far south as I want to go for wintertime, and this is where I'm going to stay during the wintertime. That way I don't freeze to death as opposed to being further up north or up in the mountains at higher elevations. I'm going to be as far south as I'm comfortable going. And coincidentally, it's right around the time of the elections, and I thought, okay, I'm going to make it to my final destinations, my final destination, Sedona, the day before the election. That way, if anything goes weird or, whatever happens as a product of the outcome of the elections, I don't vote. I've never voted in my lifetime. I don't buy into the whole political theater. It's all a bunch of bullshit. It's all a bunch of lies as far as I'm concerned. And I have literally gone my entire life without ever voting, which means everything that's going on in this world, everything that's going on in the United States, everything that is wrong, I can literally complain about it because I've never voted for one or the other. I've always had the discernment to see that voting is just an illusion. It's just to give you the illusion of choice when there's not really a choice. Like whatever leaders are put into office, they were already selected before you even got a say-so in the matter. And that's how I've always operated. Even when I wasn't really aware of everything, that's still how I've operated. I'd never voted when I was 18. I've never voted in my 20s, and to this day I've never voted, which means I have the freedom to complain and point out all the flaws and everything because I've never voted one way or the other. So as this country's been going downhill, and you got Republicans and Democrats who are blaming each other for all these different policies and everything that have been put into place, and then as a product of these policies and laws and regulations that have all been put in place over the decades, and now the United States is at the point of just going topsy-turvy and everything just goes, the United States we know just could become a third world country as a product to everything that's happened over the past 50, 60, 70 years or whatever. And so whether you're Republican or Democrat and you've been voting for these different leaders, and then the country keeps going downhill, and then you're stuck in this paradigm where you just blame the opposite party, so you're just fighting each other, and you guys don't have the discernment to take a step back and look at the big picture to see both sides are getting played. Left and right, you're both getting played, man. They're playing both of you. And if you can't see that by now, I don't know what to tell you, because if you don't understand that by now, a lot of the stuff I'm telling you probably doesn't make sense either. But if you can understand that, then you can understand there's a lot of shit going on that, there's more than meets the eyes. Things are not as they appear. What you see on TV and your internet screen, or your computer, or your computer, tablet, or your phone screen, when you're watching mainstream news, or you're watching alternative news through social media about things that are going on, the things that you see might not necessarily be what is actually happening. And the things that you're learning about, that all just might be a smokescreen. It's just propaganda, and the things that you actually believe about reality might not even be real. Which also applies to me. There are a lot of things out there. That's why I don't really dive into too much that's going on in the geopolitical sphere, things that are happening around the world. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm saying the stuff that we're learning about through mainstream media, through these alternative channels and alternative media, through these social media platforms. A lot of people, it's all just an illusion, and what we think is happening, it's not necessarily happening that way. And what's actually happening may be way fucking worse than anything anybody's even... I'm saying, like what people think they think is happening in this world might not, well, it's not, is not necessarily what's happening in this world. What people think is happening in this world, what's actually happening is way, way, way worse than anything you can even fathom. And that's what I'm trying to get people to see. That's where you need to start being able to think for yourself, trust your own self, use your discernment, think critically, don't believe everything you hear, and whatever you hear, whatever pipes your interest, whatever gets you interested, like whatever you're just tuning into, you need to do your own research on it. You need to look at all different sources of information as you can, and try to find the consistencies, the inconsistencies, and try to find the most accurate answer as you can, but also to understand at the same time, you might not have all the pieces to the puzzle. You might not have all the things. So you just got to try to find the best answer that you can and proceed forward from there. But, don't put too much energy or thought into any given thing. You got to trust yourself and focus on what's in front of you and what's going on around you. Okay, so that's where I was going at with all of this. So we're not going back to, what was going on in Page, Arizona, that second round, so November 1st and 2nd, when I was planning on doing my panhandling. I was thinking strategically. I was trying to earn as much as I could get in a span of between 2 and 3 hours of standing out there with my sign. And whatever I could get, I would take that money with me and go down into Sedona. And then once I made it to Sedona, I would evaluate my situation from there. First I got to get there safely, and then once I'm there, then I can take a day or two evaluating my next few steps, and that's essentially what I did. That's what I've done. But before all of that happened, on the November 1st and 2nd, when I went out to panhandle, between those 2 days, but in those 2 days, I earned $203 for just about 2.5 hours of standing out there. Okay, so that's, pretty good, right? I should be pretty excited about that. But there's a lot of things that happened in that span where I'm talking about, if you're, the bad guys trying to make their moves on me. So when I earlier in this video, I told you, you got to put yourself in the perspective of the bad guys. Okay, so if in their mind they know I'm panhandling, and their objective, if their objective is to try poisoning me or drugging me, if they can do that, cool. But at the same time, they know how important Malaki, my dog, is to me, and they know how devastating it would be for me to lose him. And so if they can't get to me, they've been trying to get my dog. Okay, it's been very difficult to get me, but lately, as of these past 6 months, they've really been trying to steal my dog or murder my dog through poison. Okay, so if you're a bad guy and that's your objective, is to either get me through drugs or poison, or get my dog with drugs or poison. Okay, well, how are you going to do it? Well, in my current circumstance, if they've been following me, they know their best bet is because they see me panhandling and they know I am financially broke and they know I will stand out there for a period of time until I have enough money to get what I need to proceed forward. So during that time span, I am very vulnerable and putting myself at a very dangerous risk by doing this. And I've already addressed this many different times by speaking out loud, talking about how silly and stupid it is for me doing it. But that's all I can do right now. I have no support, and I got to do what I got to do in order to feed myself and my dog. And so I've been willing to stand out there, putting myself at risk, allowing whoever's watching me, whether on the good side or whether on the bad side or the good side, whoever's watching. I got people in the distance watching. I got friends watching every interaction. I got bad guys watching every interaction. And so it's just this big learning thing. I'm the bait, I'm the cheese, and if the bad guys are going to try getting to me, well, my friends might let some of these things happen. They just let it happen. They know that this is a bad guy. They know this is a bad guy with bad intentions, and they know they're going to try making a move, and they're allowing it to happen strictly so I can eventually see it for myself and learn from the experience. And then once they play their hand, then I can turn around at some point and start talking about it and educating everybody who was not aware or who didn't know what happened, or somebody who was there but they didn't see that this was something that was possible. They didn't know that's how sadistic or fucked up these people are. These are things that they are willing to do and will try doing given the opportunity. So me going out there to panhandle that second time around, I'm aware of this stuff and I'm allowing myself to just do it because, I have no other move, and B, like I'm ready to die any day. I've accepted the reality that I could die any day, and right now I'm doing everything in my power to walk the path that God has laid before me and to do what He wants me to do if that day comes that, essentially I've done everything in my power to try fixing the solution. And then if I end up dying as a product of it, well, I've passed my test, and God, Heavenly Father, will allow me to go home, right? He'll allow me to go home rather than going the opposite direction. So I'm just living day by day, knowing that I could die any given day and I have no future. Like right now, I don't plan out into the future. At most, I try to plan out a week at the most. I have no future in the I don't know if I'll be alive a month from now. I don't know if I'll be alive 2 weeks from now. I don't know if I'll be alive 3 months from now. That is an uncertainty for me. So I'm living in the present, day by day, and just observing and dealing with my circumstances as they are and trying to move accordingly from a strategic perspective. I hope that all makes sense, right? There's a lot of words. That's a big mouthful. There's a lot of words. But, going out there to panhandle those 2 days, I made the $203. And I went out there with that sign I showed you, veteran and service dog. We're broke, no support, anything will help. That's the sign that I had. The first day that I panhandled, I made pretty decent money. And there was, I believe it was that early, that it was like right at the beginning. Right at the beginning when I first started, I set my clock for, it was like an hour and a half. So it's like right at the beginning of that countdown. It was like within the first 15 minutes, some woman showed up and she gave me like $10 and she asked me if I wanted a McMuffin. There was a McDonald's across the road, across from Walmart, and apparently she had went over there and bought herself something, and she also got an Egg McMuffin, so she had two. So she asked me if I wanted an Egg McMuffin, and I said only if you have something for yourself. If you only have one Egg McMuffin, I don't know, you can keep it. But she's like, oh, I got two. So she handed me one, and then she handed me a little bit of money, and I think she left. As far as I recall, there might be a little bit more there. I can't remember, but that's the key point. She gave me an Egg McMuffin. She left. I ate that food right on the spot. So if there's other people watching, right, if there's bait and stuff and they're trying to bait, and because before I started panhandling, I made a prayer and I prayed and talked out loud in case people were listening. I said that if anybody gives me food, I'm not going to eat any of it. I'm not going to eat any of it. I'm just going to throw it away. So I put that out there. So if there's bad guys, good guys listening, because there's microphones in my van maybe, or they're listening through my phone somehow. But I've just put that out into the universe, right? So if there are ears listening, I'm letting people know that I'm not going to eat. Okay, so I establish that. And I'm also aware of the dog snacks from the previous week with Malaki getting sick. So I established I'm not gonna eat anything, and anybody that gives me dog food, I'm not gonna feed Malaki. Okay, so I put that out there, right? And then so once I did go out there, some lady shows up within like 10 or 15 minutes, and she gives me a little bit of money, and then asks me if I want a McMuffin. First thing I do, as soon as she drives off, first thing I do, I just open the McMuffin. I didn't even open it to see if there's anything that was added onto it. I just start eating it, and then I gave Malaki some. I was like, well, if she's trying to poison us, well, we'll both go down right here, and then if I end up dying, well, anybody that's been aware of it, that has claimed to be on my team, claimed to be protecting me, and they just allowed that to happen. Well, you guys are responsible because I've been asking for your help all this time, been asking for your help, and nobody has stepped forward to help me, and I just died right here. No, it didn't happen. I ate it, and I didn't have any effects, right? So from a strategic perspective, if you're the bad guys, and, that first attempt, they just wanted to see if I would eat any food that was given to me. And that was, I know people are watching, so I ate it. And so I stabbed, okay, I'll eat. Okay, and so they're thinking, okay, well, maybe a little bit later, we'll try giving him some more food, and that will contain the poison. We won't poison the first thing just because we want to see if he'll eat it, if he'll stick to what he said when he says he's not going to. But, he's hungry and he's broke, so even if he gets food, that temptation might get the better of him, and he'll just eat the food because he doesn't want to go spend the money. So I ate that first food, right? Strategic move, right? So, and then I just go back about my panhandling. So I go back to panhandling. I ended up, I don't know, I can't remember how much I made during that time, during that first hour and a half. I think it was like around $100, so pretty good, or maybe a little bit more than $100. And the only other weird thing that happened during that hour and a half was right at the very end. Remember, I keep talking about things happening at the very end when I'm panhandling. So right at the very end, again, this was the third time I had panhandled, and so my second time I panhandled, that's when things happened right at the very end. The guy giving me the pepperoni sticks and the $50. So then right at the very end of this time, the clock was counting down, and I was kind of speaking out loud, okay, I'm only going to be here for a little bit longer. Right around that time, some guy in a black pickup truck pulls off the main road as if he's going into Walmart, and he looks over and he reads my sign, and he's just staring at me. He's mean mugging me, right? And I'm just staring at him, letting him read the sign. And then at some point he flips a U-turn around in the road, and he drives over and he pulls up next to me, and then he starts asking me, because he straight up in a negative energy, asking me with just straight bad energy from the beginning, bad attitude, and he's like, so you're a veteran, huh? Who'd you serve? And you go, again, I don't know him. I don't know anything about him. I'm not prepared to start giving him 20, 30 minutes of my time explaining my story. And again, the Navy stickers I have, it's just a shield. I have been operating from the perspective that I have had their support. Me being in the position that I'm in, I've had the perspective that I've had their support and that they're protecting me and covering me. And they are allowing me to they have allowed, Rabbit's the one who gave it to me and told me to put it on my vehicle. So my interpretation has always been to this day that it's just been a shield letting me know I have support and that I can proceed forward without fear, knowing I have people protecting me. So that's my perception. So this guy asked me who I served, and I said the Navy, nothing any more than that. And then I also had POW on there, because again, I was POW. I literally have a declaration of war. If you remember, I shared in my thing, I submitted that 300-page paper, number 11, on the outline of the first opening pages. This is a declaration of war against these people. I named them. And then a short time later, I got taken into custody, and I got incarcerated. So once you're incarcerated, you're a prisoner. So I declared war. A month and a half later, I was a prisoner. So a prisoner of war. And since I've survived everything, after everything that's happened, all this time, all these years that have passed, I've survived. I've been fighting against these people, the Satanists and the devil worshippers, and everybody on this bad side. So I'm a veteran. I'm a veteran of the Lord's army, man. I've earned my wings. Angel wings. I got my wings. I know who I am. I have my wings. I'm a veteran of the Lord's Army, and I've been a POW against these Satanists. So is that something I can really tell this guy? If I tell him that, he's just going to fucking have no idea what I'm talking about, and he's just going to think I'm a lunatic. So I just used the shield because Rabbit gave it to me as a shield. And so I said I had the Navy. And then he asked me about being a POW. I said, yeah, I've been a POW. And he's like, that makes no sense. And he started like accusing me. Well, he's first at some point he told me everything I've written on my sign is stolen valor. He was accusing me of being an imposter and a faker, essentially. I can't remember everything he said verbatim, but he was accusing me of faking it, and that I'm not a veteran, that I'm not a POW, and that my sign is stolen valor. And at some point I was trying to de-escalate him, and I was like, sir, you understand that like our entire country is corrupt, right? You know the sign that our United States is about to go upside down. We're close to civil war. You know everything's corrupt. He's like, yeah. And I was like, me specifically, I have been operating inside the United States, and I was like, my fight has been inland. Hold on, there's a truck. I was like, my fight has been inside the United States. And I told him, I think I told him I got taken as a prisoner, and I was incarcerated in Humboldt County. But it wasn't making sense to him, but obviously it doesn't make sense because, my situation is unique. But I was trying to explain to him, I was like, sir, the entire country is corrupt, right? And he acknowledges that. I was like, well, my focus has been on the corruption inside this country. I have been focused on some very high level people, and they are the ones who kidnapped me and incarcerated me and all this stuff. And he like acknowledged the fact that, he acknowledged that the country's corrupt and that everything's about to go topsy-turvy. And at that point in time, I feel like whatever I told him, it made him stop in his tracks to where he stopped being really angry at me. But I could sense that he was kind of like, he didn't literally scratch his head, but he was kind of like in his head kind of trying to figure me out because he accused me of being a faker, but I wasn't succumbing to his fear. I wasn't running away or acting evasive. I was just trying to have a conversation with him. And then whatever it was I said, it turned off his anger, whatever that means. I don't know what he was thinking, but it turned him off, he said, well, you're right about that. And then at some point he just kind of conceded. He said, okay. He just kind of, and just let me know he was going to drive off, and he told me to have a nice day. And that's all I heard from him. I never saw him again, okay? But that was a thing, and it was really weird. And, he was accusing me of that. And it's like, I want to communicate with you and let you know what my position is. I'm not trying to act like I'm an imposter or trying to fool people or manipulate people's emotions to make money. It's like, no, my story is unique, and I have earned my stripes. I've earned my wings, so to speak. And I'm just trying to get people on the same page to know where I'm coming from. But whatever, I obviously didn't have that opportunity to really tell anything to him. I didn't get an opportunity to share my YouTube channel with him, to direct him towards the channel so he could learn the truth for himself if he wanted to put in the time. But the whole incident after he left, it was right at the very end. What's funny is right after he left and I stood my ground, literally right after him, somebody followed behind the car that was waiting behind that guy. As soon as he left, the next car pulled up and gave me $5, and then they just drove off. So, I was like, I don't know, but that happened, right? And then that was right at the time when I was done. My clock goes off, my timer goes off, and so I go back to my van. And then for the next hour or two, I was just kind of like distracted and mentally a little frustrated, where I'm just reviewing this argument and conversation I had with this guy. Where I'm just kind of going back and forth as if I'm arguing with him, but I'm really not. He's not there, but I'm kind of having the same argument over and over, like kind of replaying it. So that kind of just took me off, messed with my day, even though I just made over $100. That argument at the very end really that's where my attention was really pinned on, like where I was really focused on. My intuition was like, that wasn't coincidence. That guy, him getting an argument with you, that wasn't just a random person. That wasn't an accident. That was somebody they knew. The bad guys knew I was about done because I had already announced it, and I was announcing it out loud. And so that guy showed up exactly when he did, because I was at the very end, and they wanted to fuck with me, fuck with my emotions in a different way. Where he went after that, who he talked to after that, I don't know. I have no idea. My clock's about up, but I'm going to pause real quick and reset it, and we'll keep going. Okay. Had to change out my battery. It was almost dead. And then, so where I was leaving off, I had a moment I had to recollect my thoughts as far as my timeline. So, you know, when I said I went out into the desert, right? I went out to the desert. When I was in Page, I said I went to the desert for Thursday, Friday. Well, I specifically left Page, Arizona on it was Thursday the 31st, which was Halloween. I specifically left Page to get out of town, you know, because, you know, Halloween is Satan's, you know, anybody who worships the devil and Satan, that's their day. That's the biggest day of the year for anybody who worships the dark side. So I got out of town. I went and was in my own space just to get out of, just to stay away from that dark energy is whatever happened. So, you know, call me paranoid or delusional, whatever, but I chose to go out of Page on Halloween for the 31st. I was just on my own. But fast forward, so when I said I panhandled, what was it? Where'd that little book go? I had it a minute ago. Give me a second. Where'd it go? Oh, it's right here. Okay. I said when I panhandled on the 1st and 2nd, it was actually the 2nd, 3rd, and the 3rd. So I came back to Page on Friday, and then it was Saturday, Sunday that I did my panhandling. So it was on a Saturday when that one guy, you know, the guy at the very end started yelling at me, and you know, that was a weird thing, right? So that Sunday, you know, the following day, I went out and panhandled again around the same time in the morning. It was like late morning, and I made another, you know, another $100 or so altogether. It was like $200. Nothing really weird, as far as I can remember. Nothing really weird happened that second time. You know, that second time I panhandled. The only thing that was really strange was there was this one woman who stopped and gave me like $10. She gave me $10, and she also gave. Hold on one second. She gave me She gave me $1 million bill. She gave me $10 and then $1 million bill, right? She gave me this, if you've seen it, or if you can see it on the camera. $1 million bill. She had the $10. She had the $10 on the outside, and then she had it rolled up on the inside. Or at first, when I first saw it, I thought she was giving me a $100 bill, and then I saw it said $1 million. And then when you look on the back, it's you know, it's the thing about Jesus, you know, and God, and it says the $1 million question: will you go to heaven when you die? Have you lied, stolen, used God's name in vain, or lusted, which Jesus said was adultery? If so, God sees you as a liar, thief, blasphemer, and adulterer at heart. If you die in your sins, you will end up in a terrible place called hell. But there's good news. Though we broke God's laws, Jesus paid the fine by dying on the cross. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Then Jesus rose from the dead and was seen by hundreds. He fulfilled all the prophecies of the promised Savior. Please today, repent and trust Jesus, and God will forgive you and grant you the gift of eternal life. Then, to show your gratitude, read the Bible daily and obey it. And the rest is just kind of an advertisement, you know, just to lead you to their website. You know, whoever makes this thing, it's just something to lead you towards their website. But, you know, it's just that second day, this lady showed up like pretty much near the beginning, and she gave me this, you know, it's just a message, you know, God's watching me, you know, God's watching me, and I have people who know who I am, and they're just stopping by to show their support or whatever. You know, just let me know that they're watching too. You know, I got friends and supporters who know who I am and what I'm doing, and they know that I'm having the humility of standing out on the corner. You know, have some humility. Okay, well, me having some humility is standing on the corner with my sign, asking for the kindness of strangers to help me out. And when this person, you know, if she knew who I was, or if she was just guided to me and she didn't know who I was and just something was telling her to, she had this and she gave it to me randomly. But she gave me $10, right? She gave me $10, and then she gave me this thing too. And then I believe, and then if this is, it might have been, I think it was the same person, but then she told me that I need to get out of Page right before she left. She's like, this really isn't a good place to stay. Like, this isn't a good town. You should get out of here. You should start planning on getting out of here sometime soon. And she didn't say anything more than that, but I told her, I was like, yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just trying to stay out of here for a little bit. I'm planning on leaving tomorrow. I told her that. And so she said, that's good. She was just, why she said that, I don't know. She didn't tell me why. She just said I should carry on. It's time to go on. So maybe, she handed me this and then telling me that, that could have been God. Somebody, my friends, supporters, are letting me know that things might not be good right now and I need to move on. Or at the same time, it could have been something else. I don't know. But she left, and then I think it was about 15, 20, 30 minutes later, she ended up coming back. She drove all the way back and then asked me if I was hungry and if I wanted anything from any of the restaurants that are around Walmart. She said she would go buy me some food. And I told her no. I was like, it's okay. Because again, I'm aware of the food thing, the poison and all this stuff that, she might be pretending to be on my team. This might not be what I think it is, in the sense of her giving me money, trying to build, I don't know. She might have been offering to get me food out of the kindness of her heart, and there's nothing bad about it. Or it could have been a ploy, whatever it was. I don't know. But I politely declined and said, I'm good I'll go buy my own food once I'm done. And so she said, okay, and then she left. And then, eventually I finished panhandling. I don't, right at the moment, I don't recall anything strange really happening. Oh yeah, now I do. There was, I think right at the very end, after I decided I'm gonna go walk back to my van. So my van's parked in the Walmart parking lot, so I go walk. It's like 100 paces away from me. So Malaki and I go walk over to the thing, and then right at the very end, I think some people showed up and handed me. I think they might have handed me a couple dollars or something. They kept going. Okay, so that happened. I think there was something right at the very end. Okay, so that was the thing. The following day, which was Monday, which was also the day before the elections, that was the day I was planning. So it'd be Monday. That'd be Monday the 4th. That's the day. So that Monday I was going down to Sedona, and I had I don't know. I had $200 in my pocket approximately. I decided to panhandle one more hour that Monday morning, from 9 a.m. till 10 a.m. And I just was hoping, I could make maybe another $40, and then that would pay for my fuel down to Sedona. That way I can go to Sedona and I'll have $200 in my pocket. So when I started panhandling, it was a lot slower. I didn't make nearly as much as before, but I did that whole hour, and in that whole hour, I made like 30 or 40 bucks. I made just enough to pay for my fuel, which I prayed beforehand and just prayed to God, before I went out and panhandled, and asked to make another 30 or 40 bucks, so it just pays for my fuel. Well, God delivered my prayer, just like all my other prayers. I was asking for a certain amount of money, and He gave me that amount, or if not more. And this time I prayed for another between $30 and $50 to pay for my fuel, and He delivered. Okay, so that's cool. But right at the very end, literally right at the very end, I had announced how long I was going to do it, and then I announced when I was done. I talk out loud, okay, I'm going to be done in 5 minutes. 5 minutes goes by, I'm done. So I walk all the way back to my van, and right as I'm getting to my van, here comes a car. And there's 2 occupants in the front. They're both younger than me. I think they were both in their 20s. And one of them's holding up a bag of, it was like a bag of dry dog food, and then there's little bags of dog treats. And then they had $5 or something. So they're holding up a bag, as I'm getting in my van. So these people had watched me walk across the road from where I was originally standing. They had watched me walk across the road to my van, and then they approached me as I was loading my stuff in the van, and they had some dog food wrapped in a bag, in a Walmart bag, and then they had a few dollars. So I accepted it from them and told them thank you, bless you guys, bless your family, and then they left. And literally right behind them, another vehicle showed up. Just another vehicle and another person holding up a bag of dog food, and it was like dog food in a can as opposed to dry food in a bag. It was dog food in a can, and there was four cans of dog food, and they handed it to me, and it looked like they in a Walmart bag. It looks like they just bought it. Okay, so I take it from them and tell them thank you. That person didn't give me any money or anything. They just gave me the dog food. So two people in a row giving me dog food, right at the very end. Remember, at the very end. So that's a pattern. When I'm looking for patterns and all this stuff, well, that's a pattern. These things keep happening right at the very end, and it's not a coincidence. So me noticing that they showed up at the very end, that just, as soon as they drove off, that's the first thing that I'm tuning into. Oh yeah, right at the very end again, right? And so eventually I get in the vehicle, and even though I had said that I'm not gonna feed my dog any food from any stranger, ever since the pepperoni sticks that guy gave me, and then Milwaukee started getting sick, and then I went threw it away, I established out loud and said, I'm not going to give my dog any more food from strangers. All the food that Milwaukee eats, I have to go buy it for myself. I have to see it come from the shelf, and so I'm in control of it. There's nobody handling the food in the middle, meaning that they're not giving any of these bad guys an opportunity to try poisoning or drugging him. Okay, you see him squirming like that. When he starts squirming, sometimes it's not just him stretching him. He can understand me, and when he starts squirming or scratching or making noises, sometimes it's because he understands me and I'm hitting the nose, hitting the right notes. So him just all of a sudden doing that's because he knows he's very smart. So, but I established that I wasn't going to feed my dog anything, right? So I did all that, and then again, even though I spoke out loud and said I wasn't going to feed my dog anything, by the time I was done panhandling, that, it was Monday the 4th, before the elections. And then it was in the morning time. I did that hour, and then right at the end, as I'm getting into my vehicle, I got like $40 in my pocket, and I'm just gonna fire up my van and drive to Sedona. That's my plan. I'm done panhandling. I made the money that I wanted to make, and now I'm just gonna continue on with drive an hour and a half or 2 hours down to Sedona. But for some reason, I decided, I had 2 bags of dog food. I took the bag that had the canned food. So there's 4 cans. I took one of those cans. I opened it up. I poured it in his bowl, Milwaukee's bowl, and stirred it up. And I allowed him to eat it. I purposefully allowed him to eat it. And so he eats it. He gobbles it all up. And I fire up the van, and then we take off. I didn't allowed him. I let him eat the food before we started driving. That way he could just get it down, and then anyways. So we start driving down the road, right? And then within like half an hour to 45 minutes, he starts coughing and gagging and acting like he's getting sick, right? Acting like he's getting sick, and then all of a sudden this energy is coming into my head, telling me that the food that I just received from these people, and maybe all of it or maybe just some of it, if there's 4 cans and maybe 2 cans are poisoned and 2 cans are normal food, or all the cans are poisoned, or 1 can's normal food and 3 cans are poisoned. All of a sudden this energy is hitting me, telling me that all of this food might be poisoned, and that I probably just poisoned my dog by allowing him to eat it. But at the same time, even though I should be angry with myself and frustrated with myself, at the same time this energy is telling me, it's okay, Brandon. All of this has to happen because there's a lot of eyes on you right now. And yes, your dog is sick. Yes, he is probably poisoned right now. But considering you believe in Heavenly Father, and you believe in the archangels and the angels, and you believe in all of this stuff above, and you know for a fact that you're protected. You're protected, and you're across all these different fronts. Your dog is also protected. So this energy is coming to my head telling me that he's poisoned. It's something like where if it was say I was somebody who didn't believe in God and had no faith, and therefore I had no spiritual protection, the food that he just ate probably might have just outright killed him. But considering that I'm protected and Malachi's protected, whatever poison or drug he had just eaten, if you believe in God, if you do or you don't, if you believe in God and archangels or my guardian angels, whoever it was, they are using their own powers, God-given powers, to deflect and ward off that poison or drug, whatever it was, whatever those effects were that would kill my dog, they are removing those effects so it doesn't hurt him. But there's enough residual effects there for me to visualize and see that he's going through something right now. He is visibly coughing and gagging, acting like he's sick, but that's as far as it's going to go. He's not going to collapse. He's not going to die. It's not going to be something you have to take him to the vet. He's going to burn it off. It's just this energy is telling me it's okay, but also telling me, like, if I wasn't protected, he would probably be dead right now. And it's like, you did what you said you weren't going to do, but it's okay because we know I did it on purpose because I have faith. I have faith in God. I wasn't purposely trying to drug my dog. It was essentially, I was feeding my dog, and I'm just to see, just for me to visually see if this is in fact people trying to poison me or my dog. Is this can poison? And if it is poison, I need to know for a fact, because I need to know as I'm moving forward and I continue panhandling, is this really what I'm dealing with? Do I really have to worry about every single interaction I have with people, and anything that anybody tries to feed me that I'm not purchasing off the shelf, I'm not the one buying it, and somebody's coming out of nowhere and handing me food? Is this really what I'm dealing with? Okay, I'm going to give Malaki one of those cans of food, and whatever happens, I will know that answer. Call him as a guinea pig or whatever, but something told me to, God telling me to do it just so I can see. And then once I could see, also at the same time, I have this energy telling me, yes, it is poison. Yes, your dog is now poisoned, but don't be afraid. He's fine. We will protect him. But now you know. Now you know. You've seen over these 4 or 5 times that you've panhandled, you now know the pattern. You've observed the pattern, and you have identified what they have been trying to do. These people, every time you've had this bizarre, strange encounter with these different people, they have all shown up at the very end. Okay, they all have shown up at the very end, and these different times that you have accepted food from them, as far as dog food, both of these times that you fed Malaki these foods, he has started to get sick almost immediately. So, that was a thing for me. That experience, I felt bad about it, but it also was just telling me it's okay, Malaki's fine, but everything that just happened, it was for you to know for a fact. So, 3 times, it happened 3 times, 3 out of the 4 or 5 times that I was out there panhandling, something crazy fucking happened right at the end. So if you're just looking for patterns, I'm looking for patterns and looking for similarities. Well, these patterns showed that these bad guys were watching me the whole time I was panhandling, and they chose to approach me at the very end to make their move, and that was the pattern. So yes, so I learned this. I know what the pattern is, meaning as I proceed forward, once I do, looking forward, weeks or months ahead, especially now that I'm driving down into Sedona, and I know that at some point I'm going to have to panhandle again somewhere, I am going to be anticipating and ready for anybody who tries handing me food. Any type of food, whether it's human food for me to eat or dog food for Malaki to eat. I literally know whatever food I am handed, as soon as those people walk away or drive away, I might put the food in my van and I go drive somewhere, but the nearest trash can I find, it's going in the trash. No offense, any food that somebody gives me and shares with me out of the kindness of their heart, and there's literally nothing wrong with the food, that's one thing, and that's what I feel bad about throwing away food. But like, if those, and I'm just establishing that now, and I already have established it. Like, I'm not trying to offend anybody that does give me food out of pure intentions, and there's nothing bad about it. Anybody that sees me throw away the food they've just given me, I have communicated that don't be angry or upset with me, because there have been people that have just tried poisoning my dog, and I've seen it, and so I know these patterns. And so moving forward, any food that I get, I will try and decline it if I can. But if they're just handing it to me and it would be impolite or offensive to decline it, well, I'll take it. And then once they're out of eyesight, or as soon as I find a trash can, eventually it's going to go in the trash. And then it's whatever money I get, I have to go buy my own food for myself, at least for now. And that's pretty sadistic and fucked up. Life should not be like that. Anybody that's handing me food, you should be able to trust somebody that they're giving you that food and it's clean and there's nothing wrong with it. But considering my circumstances, I have to proceed forward with that mentality. And that's once I have made it down to Sedona, and I have panhandled more, which is where the story is going, talking about some of this stuff. But the clock's about over, so I gotta reset it again. Continuing forward, so that, after, Malaki ate that can of food and he started gagging and coughing a whole bunch and acting weird. At some point, I just told Malaki, I went through all, everything I just described, all that passed right. I went through the whole mental thing of reviewing, Malaki's sick, but it's okay and all that. At some point, Malaki is very intelligent, and as far as I am concerned, he understands more than anybody would ever give him credit to. I can't say it for a fact, but he might understand everything I'm saying, and he just, it's part of, all dogs might understand everything we're saying, but dogs, if you the word dog, if you reverse the word dog, it spells God. God and dog are the same, it's just reversed. Coincidence? I don't know, probably not, but some dogs are a lot smarter than they let on to be. He's scratching right now, he's making that, so that meaning, even though he can't talk human language, doesn't mean he's not intelligent and can't understand. So where I'm going with this is, I treat Malaki as if he does understand everything I say, and he just chooses to respond as if he does understand or he doesn't. He has his own mind, and he understands more than he understands more than I know he understands or that I'm aware of, and he responds he makes his own choices, is what I'm saying. But he does understand more than anybody would really give him credit for. So what I'm saying is when I'm driving on my way, driving into Flagstaff down and then towards Sedona, and he's coughing and gagging, and I go through I mentally go over all this stuff in my head as far as him being sick and all this, and that it's okay. Well, at some point I turn to him and tell him, I was like, Malaki, I apologize, and it's not an issue about being angry or upset about eating the food. It's just we acknowledge, the food's bad, Malaki, that sucks. And so it's like, but you're fine, you'll be fine. And it's like, okay, so you're probably very uncomfortable right now. He's coughing and gagging and stuff. I was like, the best thing you can do is just try to lay down and go to sleep. That way, whatever effects you're having, if you can go to sleep, your body will just take care of it while you're asleep. So that way you're not awake and just uncomfortable. I say, by the time maybe we get to Sedona, by the time you wake up, all of those effects might have subsided, And he did. He ended up just going and laying down. He slept the entire way to Sedona. And once I made it to Sedona, it was, late afternoon, early evening. And I was hungry, so I ended up going to Chipotle and got myself a burrito. And I just left him in the van. He just kept sleeping. And then by the time I got back, I ate inside the restaurant. And then I didn't let him eat. I didn't let him eat any of my food, and he only got to eat his normal dry food and some little bit of meat and cheese added to it, like what he usually gets to eat at nighttime. But I didn't let him eat anything else, and I cut him off. I threw all that food that I had received from those people in Page. I threw all of that in the trash. And then at some point, that same, by evening, he was fine. He wasn't coughing or gagging anymore. He might have coughed and gagged a little bit that evening, but by the next day, he was fine. Completely fine. You wouldn't even notice it. He was just back to his normal self. And then from that point forward, we've just been go back into his regular exercise routine with bike rides in the morning and the evening. And then he gets a couple walks in the afternoon. But yeah, so as far as his well-being, he's been fine. All those things happen. He's totally good. There's nothing. He's been a happy guy. He gets a lot of time and attention. He's stuck inside this van way more than I want him to. Considering that it's dark, we are in winter hours right now, so it gets dark for like 12, 13, more than 12 hours a day. So 13 hours out of the day at nighttime, we're obviously in the van. And then the days where I got stuff going on, he's still stuck inside the van during the daytime. So there's many times where he's in the van for 16 to 18 hours a day, and there's only a span of 4 hours where he's actually outside doing anything fun. So it's not ideal conditions for him, but I'm doing the best that I can given my circumstances where yes, he is still getting his exercise. He gets anywhere between 6 and 8 to 9 miles every single day on just bike rides alone. So he's good on that part. Him being allowed to burn that energy allows him to maintain a positive attitude, where he's a happy dog. He's got a good attitude. He's not depressed or anything. So he knows. I've explained to him. It's like, yeah, we're in this is a very uncomfortable situation we're in, and we just have to endure and bear with it for the time being. And hopefully, sometime in the next month or a couple months or something, maybe we'll catch a break and we can get out of the van, and maybe we'll have some support and friends around. I don't know. I don't know where my life's going to be a few months from now. But he's fine. I'm taking care of him the best I can. He's a good boy. He's really chill. All that. So that's all I really need to talk about in the context of Malaki's well-being. He's just been sleeping the whole time. As I've been recording, you've just been watching him sleeping. It's because he's got a lot of exercise already today. But yeah, so I drove all the way from Page to Sedona, and I arrived into Sedona, Arizona, the day before the United States elections, right? Yeah, the day before. That evening, I went to Chipotle and spent like $11 on a burrito just because I was really hungry, and the fact that I made $200 panhandling, I just went and spent a little bit of that on a very big burrito, and that's the first. Out of the 140 some days I've been in my van, that's the first food that I've bought from a restaurant. For these last 140 days, I've literally just been buying groceries from the grocery store and dinner every single night for 140 days, with exception to like 2 or 3 nights, or a few times where I went and got hot food from the deli at the grocery store. But the rest of the time, so I've just been eating a cheese meat sandwich, nothing but cheese and meat and bread every night for 140 some days as my dinner. I have not had the money to go buy myself real meals, and the fact that I'm just been trying to spread out my money as far as I can and make it last as long as I can. I've just been sticking to meat, cheese, and bread, meat, cheese, and bread at nighttime for my protein, carbohydrates, and fats. And then in the morning time, I got my bananas for potassium and fruit, a little bit of fruit. And then cereal, and the Nutri-Grain bars, or some, I don't know, just random things, a little bit of random things in the afternoon. But my diet has been very minimal. I'm not ingesting enough calories each day compared to how much I'm burning. So as I've said in my other videos, if you watch my other videos, I've told you over a period of few months, after a period of time, I'm gradually going to be losing weight a little bit at a time, and it's all going to add up over a longer period of time. Where today, I'm down to like 125 to 120 pounds because I'm not eating enough each day. And the food that I am eating is just not enough calories to compensate for how much I've burned throughout the day. And there's nothing I can do about it when my life has been destroyed, and everything's been destroyed, and everybody perceives me as the bad guy, or perceives me as somebody with mental health issues, and everybody's gang stalking me and trying to poison me and murder me and shit. And like, how am I supposed to make money and function in a healthy way when all this stuff is going on, right? So all this shit's going on. But that, when I got to Sedona, when I made it to Sedona, that was my final destination. I've been trying to make it all, as far as my timeline, all these months, if I can make it to Sedona, that's as far south as that I'm going to go. So now that we're here, I'm going to go splurge and spend $11 on a big burrito. And that's the first big burrito or big thing of food I've had over this entire duration. And since then, since I've had that burrito, I have been eating nothing but a few bananas in the morning and a fucking meat, cheese, and bread sandwich at nighttime because I cannot afford to go buy anything else. Right now, I have literally $0 in my pocket as far as cash. I have zero cash in my pocket, and now, as of the past 4 days, I've been depleting money from my. I told you I had like I told you I originally had like $500 or $400, between $400 and $500 left over for my emergency funds, left over my bank account. Well, I've already burned through half of that since I've arrived to Sedona, just due to my own expenses. There's been a whole bunch that I've had to spend money on replenishing my food supplies, fuel, and everything involved. I've burned through the money that I earned panhandling. I've been in Sedona for 2 weeks now. Or a week and a half now, and I burned through the cash that I got. Went from Page. I went through all that, and then, just by driving around fuel and restocking my groceries, having to buy ice. And then at some point, I was in Sedona for a few days. I was not panhandling in Sedona. I spent the first few days kind of just getting my bearings and driving around, just really getting oriented on where all the different, grocery store, different city parks, places I can sleep at night, just exploring and looking at different places that I can go and hang out throughout the day, and then potential places that I might be able to panhandle. I spent a few days doing that, and then for some reason, intuition is telling me, okay, you're going to be in Sedona for a number of months, so it might not be smart or wise or strategically wise to panhandle in the place that you're trying to hang out most of the time. So there's a neighboring town called Cottonwood, which is only like 15 miles away. It's only like a 20-minute drive from Sedona to Cottonwood. And Cottonwood actually has a Walmart, and Sedona does not have Walmart. Cottonwood has a Walmart and a few different grocery stores, so there's a number of places I could go to try panhandling as compared to Sedona, which only has a Safeway and or some wholesale foods. I don't know, Safeway and some other grocery store, not a big grocery store. So there's not really a whole lot of opportunities to panhandle in Sedona. So my intuition, after spending a few days and burning through all the cash I had made up in Page, once I started running out of that cash, well, the remaining cash I had left and the remaining fuel I had left from that entire trip, I decided to go down to Cottonwood and try my luck at the Walmart in Cottonwood, Arizona, as opposed to trying to panhandle in Sedona. Let's just go to a different town, try and do my panhandling there, and whatever money I can make there, eventually, if I got enough to fill my gas tank and enough food to last me for the next week or two, well, then I'll just drive right back to Sedona and just hang out in Sedona for however long and create no issues in Sedona. Do my panhandling here, do my, hanging out, sleeping, and just having fun here, So that's what my plan was, as we headed to as Malaki and I headed to Cottonwood, right? So when I went to Cottonwood, I think when I got there, I think I might only had I think I spent all my cash. I think I was out of cash, and I was going to Cottonwood I had enough fuel in my tank to get me there, and then once I got into Cottonwood, I had enough. That I just had everything I need to get me there, and then once I'm there, I'll just literally start panhandling that day, and I'll spend the next few days panhandling. And if I just, if I look at how I did in Page, well, if I spend the next day to 3 days panhandling, if the trend continues, if I keep making the same amount of money, well, I should, my reserves, my financial stock will go up. I might have a few $100s. I can breathe a little bit better. Oh my God, that would be nice. And then I can go back to Sedona. So I had no idea what to expect, so I went there with no money, with no cash, and the only money I have left is my emergency fund, so that I'm doing everything in my power not to touch that, because I need that just in case, looking ahead. So I get to Cottonwood, and I drive straight to Walmart, and as I'm pulling into Walmart, there's one entrance. There's like the main entrance to go into the parking lot. You drive, you're going down the main road and you turn off to go into the parking lot. And there's one entrance in the sense where there's inbound traffic going into the parking lot, and traffic coming out to go back out onto the main road and leave. So there's really only one spot to stand and panhandle. Okay. And now let's back up. When I was in Page, every single time that I panhandled in Page, over that week and a half I was in Page, I did not see a single person panhandling at Walmart. I did not encounter one person who was standing somewhere panhandling where I wanted to panhandle. There was nobody blocking my ability to just get my sign and go walk out there and start doing it. So I had no, in the context of competition, there was no competition in the context of other panhandlers in Page who were standing in a good spot to try to make money. It was just when I wanted to do it, I could go do it. Okay, so take that note. But now that I'm in Cottonwood, fast forward to now that I'm in Cottonwood and I'm heading to Walmart. Remember, when I'm talking out loud, I told you I talk out loud in my van and I'm announcing my moves ahead of time. Well, if the good guys have access to what I'm saying inside the van, just as much as the good guys and bad guys both have access to hearing what I'm talking about inside my van. However they do it, I don't know. But if I'm announcing where I'm going and both sides can send people that way ahead of me before I'm there, well, I'm saying, so where I'm going with this is when I got to Walmart in Cottonwood, there was literally a person, it could just be a coincidence, but immediately there was a young woman there standing exactly where I wanted to stand, and she was playing a guitar and she was singing. And immediately in my mind, my memories got triggered all the way back to 2018 after I met Dan and everything that happened in Las Vegas. Eventually, I told you eventually I got away from Las Vegas, and then I went to back to Oregon, and then from Oregon I ended up going up to Montana, where I spent the entire summer doing a little bit of landscaping and yard work. I had my travel van, so Milwaukee and I went up to Montana and Kalispell area, Kalispell, Whitefish, Montana area, and that's where I hung out for the entire summer. It's kind of a weird, it's a side story, but it's relevant. When I was in Montana to that summer, a lot of really weird shit happened while I was there on account of Dan and other people that were gang stalking me and having people mess with me. They're communicating with people who live in Montana who are part of this dark web, and so people were messing with me while I was there. Well, there was this big weird thing that happened towards the end of the summer where I got this random message through social media, and people were talking about, it was like I got an invitation by somebody from social media who'd been following me, and this person told me that there's like a ship or a big boat that is it's on the East Coast, somewhere on the East Coast, like the northeast corner of the United States, where there's a whole bunch of people who are awake. There are a whole bunch of people who are awake of what this world is. And that the fact that we might live on a flat Earth, and there might be something at the very center of Earth. If you look at your compass and follow north and go directly to north, there might be something there that the truth has never been told. It's a big secret. And somebody messaged me and told me that there was some boat or ship that was going to be sailing to the very north point of Earth, as far as go all the way to north where the compass goes, where there's this rumor that there's a portal or a giant black tower or something that is like a gateway to another reality or world. It's like a place where you can leave this world. And this person told me that there's this ship and a whole bunch of people traveling from the United States who are going to get on this boat, and everybody's going to go on it and try going there and then try going through this portal. So along the lines, as crazy as it is, that happened, right? And I got invited to go on it, right? I didn't believe it, but I was very curious because I had a whole bunch of shit going on around me, a lot of weird stuff. And from at the time back then, I was not aware of the things that I'm aware of now, and I was very confused as far as what was taking place. I knew things were happening, but I was confused and couldn't identify what was what. And then all of a sudden, this giant elaborate story came to be, right? And then I got invited to go on it. So because it was me, I chose and I said I would go do it. I said I would drive all the way from Montana. I would take my van and I would drive all the way from Montana to the East Coast, and I would get on this boat. I would leave my van behind and all of my property, with exception to what I can carry with me. I would get on this boat and go with them. I said I would do it. I started communicating with this person, said I would do it. I found out the dates and the locations and where it's at. So, if I have bad guys and they're trolling me and they're trying to set me up with something, as far as they knew, they thought that they had psychologically, they tricked me, and they thought that I believed them, and they proceeded forward with the impression that I would go all the way. And that's the illusion that I gave them, because I not only did I tell them I would do it, I had worked enough that summer where I think I had maybe a couple $1,000 or at least $1,500 or something, where I could at least afford the fuel to go a ways and drive back. This was kind of like a fishing exercise. I told these people that I believed them. I told them that I was going to do it, but from my perspective, it was kind of like a fishing exercise. I didn't really know what was going on, but in order for me to find the truth, I had to act like I was going to proceed forward with this plan. And I went as far as, not only did I agree to do it, not only did I agree to go on this trip and all this stuff, one of my college friends, his name's Robert, one of my college friends back from my early 20s, he had recently come into my life, established contact with me, where I was talking to him every once in a while on Instagram, and then at some point I having a phone call with him. But my friend Robert, back from college, he had started dating this girl. He met this girl from Hawaii that had supposedly been living in Hawaii like I did. But this girl, he had started dating this girl who supposedly knew who I was. I didn't know anything about her. But apparently these two started dating, and the two of them had went and bought a travel van similar to mine. Not the same model or make, but they went and bought a travel van, and the two of them were just beginning to live the van life. So they're starting to date, they start doing the van life, and so they were trying to make it a big thing on social media, where they wanted to get all famous and all this, where they're sharing everything they're doing in the van life, acting like this happy couple that you see these things on YouTube with people, these van life couples, and they have their big channel and all that stuff. Well, they were trying to do that, and because I'd been living in my van, they were probably using me as an example and trying to mimic me in different ways. I don't know, but those two started dating. This guy named Robert and his girlfriend named Lexi. They started dating, and then at some point Robert contacted me and then told me what they were doing, that they had bought a van. And then at some point he handed the phone. I've never spoke to his girlfriend. I had no idea who his girlfriend was, but he handed his phone to her, to where all of a sudden I'm talking to her on the phone and she's just filling my head with a bunch of nonsense. But all the same, they're trying to just establish this rapport with me, letting me know they're in the van and they're living the van life now, just like me. Okay, so I'm aware of this. So I'm aware. I have this knowledge in my head, right? I'm aware of what they're doing, and as far as I knew, they were all the way up near Washington, near British Columbia, somewhere near the Washington-Canada border, around, or like maybe Vancouver or something. That's where they were, and then I had knowledge about them when I was in Montana, and I got this invitation to get on some ship and go sail to the center of the North Pole or whatever, the center of the map. Well, I was kind of in this weird thing where I was aware of this, and I was also aware of Robert, and I wasn't really sure, okay, well, I might need help getting there. I might need help getting to the East Coast. I'm not really sure what's going on, but it might be better if I try going to this coast by having a friend with me, something. There's just something going on with Robert and Lexi that was kind of just irking at me, right? It's irking at me, kind of messing with me. But for some reason, I called Robert and invited him to drive down to Montana and meet me here. And then I told him about this big trip that I want to do. And I told him my intention of going to the East Coast. And if this ship did exist, I told him I planned on getting on that ship with my dog. And I told Robert and his girlfriend they could literally have my van and all of my stuff. Whatever I can't carry with me, they can have my van. And then after they drop me off, they can just turn around and drive all the way back to Montana in my van. And then once they make it back to Montana, they have two vans. I threw that out there for him. This is bait. Robert was trying to pretend to be my friend, and I was just wanting to know where he really stood. Are you really my friend, or are you going to take this bait and try, if this is all some big setup, why did you come into my life? And if you did come into my life because of this all giant orchestrated thing, well, I'm going to invite you guys to come down. I don't know where you stand, but I'm going to invite you guys down. And if you do take the bait where you are willing to drive with me off to the East Coast, and you will literally watch me sail off and then drive off with my van and keep it for your own, okay, let's see if you'll do that. So I asked Robert if he wanted to come down, him and his girlfriend, if they wanted to, and they agreed. They decided to leave all the way. They drove all the way from Vancouver, or somewhere Vancouver or British Columbia or somewhere around the Canada border, and they drove all the way to Montana, and they met me in Kalispell. Long story short, the three of us left. We left their van at some lady's house, some lady that I had been working at. I'd been working at. I told you I was doing landscaping and like yard work and stuff while I was in Montana, just to earn money. Honestly, that's how I was earning my money in Montana. I was advertising on Craigslist for yard work and landscaping, and I had a number of people who I was working for, and I had developed a relationship or friendship with some older lady. She was probably like in her 80s or something, and I did a bunch of yard work for her. But she had been allowing me to park on her property at night with my van, as far as a place to sleep at night. She'd been letting me sleep there. And so this lady allowed Robert and Lexi to leave their van on her property in her driveway while we took my van and went on a road trip. I told her we were just going on a road trip. I didn't tell her what I was originally planning. I didn't tell her I was getting on a boat or anything. But this lady perceived I was just going on a road trip with my friends, and she agreed to allow Robert and Lexi to leave their van while we left in mine. So once Robert and Lexi did show up, they brought some of their personal belongings, loaded it into my van. So it was really cramped. Imagine this van crammed with three people. That I ended up letting Robert and Lexi sleep on my bed, and I just slept on the floor in the middle of the van over the course of this trip. But when we got on this trip, right, we go on this trip, and as we start driving east, we drive through all of Montana, and I think it was either North Dakota. We drove through North Dakota or South Dakota. North Dakota. And then we eventually made it all the way to Minnesota. The whole time we're on this trip, when I had agreed to get on this boat and said that, and when I had put it in motion that I was going to get on this boat and go on this trip. Well, imagine being a bad guy and it's all a big fake thing, and you find out that you think that I'm that stupid and you think that it's all real. And so everybody who's involved, everybody's getting excited and they're all planning and plotting and scheming and stuff. So, everybody's working against me, right? But people thought that's what I was going to do. So people were communicating with me in different ways, speaking to me in different ways. Some of them treated me like I'm stupid, just trying to pull me deeper and deeper into it. But at some point, where I'm going with this, at some point I got invited to a chat room. There was a chat room, and there were hundreds of people. I don't know, 100. I have no idea how many people there, but the chat room was so active that you couldn't even read the messages because there was so many people leaving messages that it was just this infinite thread of people just leaving messages. There's that many people in the lobby. And every single person was talking about this boat trip, about, as if it was a real thing. Everybody's talking about this boat trip and what they're planning, and people are asking what they need to bring and what kind of money and stuff. So all I'm doing is just reading this thread, and, I'm gathering intelligence. All I'm doing is just reading and learning and observing, seeing, because I'm just trying to see what I'm dealing with. And as I'm reading all of this, at some point I started scratching my head. It's like, these people in this chat room, they're straight up stupid. They're stupid. Most of these people are just making up these magic scenarios where at first, when I had originally been invited to go on this trip, I was told it was like a giant ship. I was told it was going to be this giant ship, a giant boat that could accommodate everybody. Okay, I don't know what that means, but that's what my impression was. There was going to be a giant ship. Well, once I had made it to these chat rooms and I started reading the chat rooms, well, the ship that I'd been told about didn't exist. These people were talking about building their own boat. And I'm like, what the fuck? So all these people are talking about this. Everybody who's going to show up, you have to bring a variety of materials or money, and you have to contribute your money or materials towards the cause. And then everybody's going to pool their money and materials together, and we're going to literally build our own boat. And I'm like, what the fuck? We're going to build a boat? That's where we're going with this? Now we're going to build a boat? I don't think so. And then the next thing I know, it just keeps getting worse and worse. And it literally sounds like something from like Huck Finn. The book Huck Finn. Huckleberry Finn. And like going down the river and stuff on a raft. Well, people are literally talking about something like that. It sounded like something out of Huck Finn. And I'm like, wow, these people are straight up dumb. dumb as fuck. And then at that point in time, I'm like, dude, this whole thing's just fake as fuck. I don't know what this is, but this isn't even real. At that point in time, I think we were, as far as the road trip, I'm watching all this. It's taking hours and a few days to watch all of this evolve. And Robert, my college friend who I've known since my early 20s, he was born and raised in Minnesota. And so his family lived in Minnesota. So as we were doing this road trip, right around the time that I did, I read all these the chat room and saw these group messages and just assessed that I already had a feeling it was nothing but a big hoax, big fake thing. But after reading it, I really knew it was just something really psychotic and disgusting. Some people pulling some really sadistic stuff right there. But I decided, okay, we're not going to go on this trip, right? So I communicated that with Robert and Lexi. I originally told them, when we first started on this trip, I told them about this, what I was planning on doing and what was waiting at the end of the East Coast. I told them about the boat that was going up north. I told them it might not even exist. I let them know it might not exist. We might not even make it the entire way. And I told them at some point in time, we literally might just turn the van around and drive all the way back to Montana. And then, it's not necessarily a waste of a trip because, it's kind of like a little road trip where we see a bunch of cool stuff and we just drive back, But I just let them know before we even started this trip, at some point we might just turn around and drive back. And they knew it. They agreed to it, right? But around the time that I made that decision to turn around, we had just like crossed crossed the state border going into Minnesota. And I asked Robert, I was like, Robert, how close does your family live to where we were at? And it was only like, I don't know, a couple hours, not that far. And I was like, Robert, do you want to just, rather than just turning straight around, do you want to go see your folks? I didn't know how long it had been since Robert had seen his mom and dad. And I just threw it out there. Do you want to go see your mom and dad? Cool. And he's like, yeah, he said he did. So we just drove straight to his parents' house. And his parents, I'd never met his parents. I had no idea where they lived, but, I just followed Robert's directions. We went straight to their house, which is when we got there right around sunset, right before it got dark. And that's when I found, Robert's parents, they had a house, a lakeside house. Their house was built on the edge of a lake. Minnesota's full of a whole bunch of lakes. Well, his parents' house was built on a lake. Really nice house. And then once we get there, his parents, he announced it to his parents, so they knew we were coming. He called them and let them know we were nearby, and we showed up, and they were expecting us. So they made dinner. His parents made dinner that night. And, so it's Robert, Lexi, and I. The whole drive there from Montana to Minnesota, this was the first time I'd ever met his girlfriend, Lexi. Didn't know anything about her. And the whole drive, there was just something off about her. She was friendly. There was nothing saying that she wasn't friendly or nice, but there was something about her that was just kind of bugging me. Just something that was bugging me, but I couldn't pin it. I could not pin what it was. And so when we finally made it to Robert's house, and then we were having a family dinner, so it's his mom, his dad, Robert, Lexi, and myself. I think it was just the 5 of us. At some point during the dinner, I found out that Robert's mom and dad do not like Lexi, and Lexi does not like Robert and Robert's dad or mom. So I'm sitting at this table, and at some point, they start throwing jabs at each other. They start throwing jabs, and at some point, the whole dinner became very awkward because they were kind of arguing with each other. And so I just sat there watching the whole thing. I'm like, wow, these people don't really like each other. That's weird. Okay, whatever. I'm not going to go much detail about that. But where I'm going is, after dinner was over, Robert and Lexi literally disappeared. They went downstairs and disappeared and went into a bedroom, and they just hung out in their own company. And which was really weird because I don't think Robert had seen his parents for a long time. And the fact that now that we're there, rather than spending time with his folks, he's hiding in a different room with his girlfriend because his girlfriend doesn't like his parents and his parents doesn't like his girlfriend. So that entire night, he didn't even spend time with his mom or his dad and have any type of conversation with them. And when they disappeared, Robert's dad asked me if I wanted to go outside and just hang out, just to chat. So I ended up going outside with Robert's dad, and we sat out on their back deck like until like midnight. I had I can't remember if his dad gave it, but he let me. I smoked some weed. Just sit on the back patio, I smoked a little bit of weed, and then his dad was drinking. So I just smoked a little weed, and then we were just talking. And we ended up getting in a really deep conversation where I didn't really do much talking, but his dad, that night, it was literally like his dad was like confessing to me. Like his dad was telling me personal stuff that he had no reason to tell me the things that he told me. I didn't know anything about him, but it was like he was confessing his soul to me because he had a burden on his shoulders, and he just told me so much that night. He started telling me about Robert's girlfriend and what Robert's girlfriend was doing to his son. She was just using Robert for his money and taking everything from Robert. And this whole thing, his parents did not like Robert's girlfriend because they could literally see through her mask and see that she's like somebody that's just leeching off him and using him for whatever he will give. And Robert's just following her around like a lost puppy, just because Robert had just gotten out of a previously serious relationship, and Lexi was the next relationship after like a 5-year relationship with another woman. So she was like a rebound, and Robert was following her around like a lost puppy, doing her bidding, and Robert's parents could see all of this, and Robert would not listen to anything they had to say, because Lexi was spitting venom in Robert's ears. So anything his parents were saying to him out of concern and worry for this relationship, Robert wouldn't hear it. He didn't want to hear nothing of it. Okay, but his dad told me all of this. Okay, he told me all this, and he told me about Lexi, things I didn't know about her. Okay, so now my perspective about Lexi has changed, and I'm aware of all this stuff, right? So eventually the night ended, and you go to bed. And then that's pretty much the last real interaction I had with his parents. The next day, Robert, Lexi, and we all left like sometime in the afternoon that day and returned driving west back towards Montana. Now that I knew all this about Lexi, I was just kind of observing her. She was just like somebody I was observing. I wasn't really being friendly with her, but I wasn't being mean either. I was just kind of observing her, just letting her do her thing, and mostly just interacting with Robert. And so we drove all the way, I think it was sometime right around the time we were just getting into, like, crossing into Montana, somewhere around there, Montana, or right around the Montana, North Dakota state border. I pulled over I had to get fuel, right? I had to get fuel for my van, and I had to get fuel for my van, and I was only using my debit card. The entire trip, I was only using my debit card to pay for my fuel both ways. And so this time, as we were driving back and we came back into Montana, pulled over so I can fill up the van. And while I'm filling up the van, Robert gets out of the van and goes inside to go to the bathroom. Okay. So it's just Lexi's hanging out inside the van, and then it's just me outside filling it. Well, at some point, I finished filling the tank, and then I climb back in the front seat, which is when I hear, Lexi is on her phone, and she's watching YouTube, and she's literally watching a video about how to she has been living like a transient gypsy panhandler life for a number of years, where she sings. When I started talking about that person singing at Walmart, when I got to Cottonwood, Arizona. I told you about that woman singing with a guitar where I wanted to panhandle. Well, when I saw her, my immediate memory came back to Lexi, because that's how Lexi was earning her money, was by singing in public places and panhandling that way. And so where I'm going with this is back then, back in 2018, when after this trip of whatever happened with the boat and stuff, and then driving back to Montana. And then when I climb back in my van and Lexi's watching this video, she's watching a video about how to manipulate people's emotions in order to make people give you money. That's the video was about, singing on the street and singing specific songs and playing on people's emotions in order to incentivize or manipulate people to give you money. So I'm listening to her watching this, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty sadistic. You're all about manipulating people. I'm thinking this, right? And then the thing that the cherry on the cake, the thing that really set it off, was at the very end of the video. I don't know what channel she was listening to. I don't know who she was listening to, but at the very end of the channel, the video concluded by praying to Jesus, like, you know, concluding the video in Jesus' name, praying to Jesus and stuff. I'm like, what? What? You know, because supposedly Lexi believes in Jesus. Supposedly she's somebody that claims to be spiritual and all this stuff. So I turn around and I'm like, Lexi, how can you be trying to manipulate people to get money and be used? I was like, how can you be trying to manipulate people's emotions in order to get money while using Jesus' name in the same breath? That's like that contradicts one another. I questioned her. I literally directly asked her. I was like, I can't remember what I said verbatim, but I was like, you're trying to manipulate people under Jesus' name? And that question, oh my God, that question, it was like triggering the inner demon within Lexi. Right around when I asked this question, Robert was getting back inside the vehicle. Lexi was in the front seat, the front passenger seat, so she's right next to me as I'm firing up the van and we're gonna take off down the road. Little did I know that I triggered that demon. As we start driving down the road, because I asked her that question, the next thing I know, she's literally right next to me and she's just starts screaming in my ear and she starts taunting me and mocking me, and she's talking like a little child, like nya, 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 right? Just running her mouth in my ear. Just, I can't even remember everything she said, but she's literally in my ear just taunting me, taunting. And had she been a man, I'm just letting you know, if she ends up watching this, I don't care. Had she been a man, I would have just fucking punched her right square in the face, because the things that she was saying was so wrong and offensive. And she was only saying it because I called her out. But she did that, you know, she's doing that, and Robert's in the back seat just watching this happen, keeps his mouth shut. He's just letting his girlfriend run her fucking mouth in my ear as I'm driving. Lexi was very lucky. Lucky that I didn't punch her, and B, I should have kicked her out of my van. I should have just pulled off the road, grabbed all of her belongings, thrown it out of the van, and kicked her out. Get out. And if Robert wanted to get out too, he could have got out and I would have just left him on the road. But because Robert was a college friend of mine, and I was, you know, his dad had just told me everything about his girlfriend, well, you know, maybe Robert's just in a bad position. Maybe I can eventually have a moment to talk to Robert and let him know what his dad said. And which is exactly kind of what I did. You know, after Lexi went on her big rant about me, just yipping in my face, I turned around and I was like, Robert, you see this? And at some point I can't remember everything I said, but I told Robert about what his dad had said about Lexi, and that made Lexi even more mad, because she's like, oh wow, you spent the entire night talking about me? His dad, Robert's dad, his dad and you were talking about me all night? So that just made her even more livid, dude. At some point, Robert, I don't know if Robert separated her or if I just told her to get out of there, but she pretty much made her go to the back seat and had Robert sit up front because I was done. So that rest of the trip, the entire way, all the way back to where we had left the van in Kalispell, Montana. So we drove the entire rest of the way. Did not a single word to Lexi again. I did not speak to her again after that. It was just this weird, awkward silence. Okay. So where I'm going with this is, once we made it back to that lady's house where the van was stored, it was like evening going into dark. So, once we got there, Robert and Lexi unpacked all of their stuff from my van, and they put all their stuff back inside their van, and then we eventually went to bed. I went to bed in my van, slept in here with my dog, and then they went to sleep in their van. The next morning, we got up early, and then the lady that lived at the house, I don't know if she made us breakfast or gave us some breakfast or coffee. She might have just gave us coffee or something, but that lady, Robert, Lexi, and myself, and that lady's sister was there too. So there's two old women. They're both there. You know, they're sisters. And then Robert, Lexi, and I were all sitting on this back patio, just for like an hour and a half that morning. I'm not going to really go into detail about everything, but at some point Lexi went and got her guitar, and she started singing. Like, she started playing her guitar and singing on this lady. She doesn't even know this lady. This lady I'd been working for, didn't even know her. But Lexi went and got her guitar, and she started singing on the back patio and playing her music. And she would not stop. She played for like 20 or 30 minutes and would not stop. And I'm wanting her to stop because she's really annoying. From my perspective, it's not even good music. And I know exactly what she's doing. She's trying to manipulate people's emotions. I just watched her watching a video about how to manipulate people's emotions. And I'm literally watching her play music, and it's really annoying. And she's just trying to impress these two old women. And I look over, and both of the women, they're making eye contact with each other, and sometimes me, kind of like, is she ever going to stop? Kind of like not being rude to her, but just kind of there's that silent body language, eye exchange, where it's like, when is she going to stop? Right? So at some point she does stop, finally. And then at some point I asked Robert, I was like, Robert, you want to hang around for another day? I wanted to just hang out with Robert one-on-one. And since they had driven all the way from like Washington, Canada area, I was like, you want to hang out for a day or two? I haven't seen you for a long time. And then we can, just go downtown, hang out at the park or something. That's what I was trying to do, just have a conversation with Robert. But Lexi did not want to stay. So Lexi had her way. And rather than Robert hanging out with me at all, they left. They literally left Kalispell and they went straight north. And they crossed the U.S.-Canada border and went into Canada. Okay, so they disappeared that day. And then, I just had everything that had happened, I had to decompress. So I ended up staying at that lady's house another day. The following morning, after I had time to kind of just think about everything, at some point I got my wallet and I needed to check my finances. I needed to figure out how much money I spent on my fuel going east and then driving all the way back. And so at some point I had to start figuring out how much I spent and how much I left over. And the thing is, on that entire trip, I used nothing but my debit card. So hypothetically, had I gotten on that boat, a debit card would have been useless. And if anything, any type of money that I would have needed had I got on that boat, it would have just been cash. So I had a whole bunch of cash from all the work I'd done, the money that I'd earned. I had a whole bunch of cash, and then I also had money in my bank account. On that road trip, I was just trying to deplete my bank account. And then, then I had like $800 or $900 in cash in my wallet at the time. And so after Lexi and Robert left and went back up to Canada, that following day, when I started assessing how much money I had left, after checking my bank account and then my wallet, when I looked at my wallet, I noticed that my stack of cash was like half as thick as it was beforehand. I'm like, that's weird. So then I start counting my money, and then when I count my money, that's when I figured out that I was like, I don't even know how much. I was like $400 light. $400 missing out of my fucking wallet. And that's when immediately it hit me. It's like, Lexi stole it. I had my wallet laying around in various places as we were driving on this road trip and back. Well, Lexi probably saw my wallet, after I confronted her and she got mad at me. Well, while I'm driving and my back's turned, my wallet was probably somewhere she could get it, or she took advantage of it while we were unloading stuff and my back was turned. But at some point, she took half of the money I had in my wallet. She didn't take all of it, because had she taken all of it, it would have been a dead giveaway from the beginning. So she only took half of it. That way, they could get away from me, and by the time I figured it out, I would have no idea where they're at. Okay. But when I discovered this and realized half my money was gone, immediately I knew it was Lexi, and I called Robert's phone, his cell phone. Robert answered the phone, and I literally told him what happened, and I told him that, Robert, your girlfriend stole half my cash. Robert denied it. He wouldn't believe me. He's like, how do you know she stole it? I was like, well, Robert, did you see me spend any cash on this trip on fuel? You saw me using only my debit card, right? He's like, yes. I was like, okay, well, I had like $800 or $900 in cash in my wallet, and now I only have $400. And the only people who I've been around is you and Lexi. And considering Lexi and I just had that big fit yesterday, or whatever, and then it's like, who else would have taken it? And he just defended her every step of the way. And then at some point in the background, I could hear Lexi yelling, fuck you, Brandon, fuck you, Brandon, just taunting me in the background. And Robert's just telling me that she didn't have anything to do with it and that I just miscounted my money or lost it or whatever. And then that was essentially it. We conversation ended, and so I'm like, wow, I'm just left here. I just got robbed by them, and then whatever the shit was with this boat on the East Coast, everybody trying to bait me off on a boat and make me disappear up, trying to bait me onto a magical boat that doesn't exist and have me go disappear doing something stupid. That, and then Lexi stealing my money. Well, the thing is, after they got, when I told you they went straight up to Canada, right? And then I got a hold of Robert. After I told Robert about it, and he denied it. At some point, after I got all pissed off and stuff, I'm just saying, at some point, like later that evening or something, at some point I got on social media because I had Robert and I, we were following each other on Instagram, and his girlfriend and I were following each other on Instagram. So I went and got on I went and looked at both of their Instagram pages, and I think one of them or both of them had posted a brand new picture as their most recent picture. And they were standing on some like scenic viewpoint or a mountain peak somewhere in Canada. They just left Montana and went up to Canada. And where they were, they went to a place that was called Devil's Thumb. Devil's Thumb is where they went after I got robbed. And they post this picture from this place called Devil's Thumb, and in the comments is Dan's wife. Dan's wife had left a message on Lexi's Instagram page, and all of a sudden I'm scratching my head. I'm like, how? Wait a minute. I randomly met Dan and his wife Jamie in Montana, or not in Las Vegas. I met them. This is the first time I ever met Jamie and Dan, and that was in Las Vegas, March of 2018. How the hell is Lexi, who is Robert's girlfriend back from college, how the hell is Lexi and Jamie friends on social media? And why is Jamie leaving a comment on Lexi's page talking about how beautiful the picture is, when on the thing it's tagged the devil's thumb, and Dan has claimed to be the devil? So did Lexi steal this money off, taking directions off of Dan? I don't know, but all of it added together some fucked up stuff. But the fact that Lexi robbed me $400 and they walked free without any type of consequences, well, that's messed up. So yeah, I'm talking about this now because the whole reason about talking about Lexi, because she played music to manipulate people. Okay, where I was going something, this whole background information I told you about, all this stuff that happened. Well, now we're jumping back forward to my current situation. I make it down to Sedona, spend a few days there, and then now I'm out of money, and I go to Cottonwood, Arizona, because there's a Walmart there, and I want to try panhandling at Walmart to try and make some money, because I had good luck at the Walmart in Page, Arizona. Well, if the bad guys were watching all of my good luck at the Page, Arizona, and they know I'm going to the Walmart in Cottonwood, well, if they failed at poisoning me, and they failed at poisoning my dog, what are they going to try next? Well, they know I'm broke, and they know where I'm going, and they don't want me to earn enough money to feed myself. Well, the next thing we can do is we can literally put actors and fake people, gang stalkers, we can literally put them in every position that I'm going to go where I want to panhandle. So literally, as soon as I arrive to Cottonwood, Arizona, and I go towards the Walmart, and I find, and I look at the one spot I wanted to go, there's literally a girl standing at that spot, singing a guitar, playing her guitar and singing. And the first thing I can say is, I don't know if it was Lexi, but this energy just hits me, and all of a sudden these flashbacks and memories from all the way back in 2018, all of a sudden Lexi's energy starts flooding my mind, and it's like, this bitch, this isn't just a natural person trying to ask money. This is someone who is strategically standing there to block my ability to stand out there and try and get some money to feed myself and fill my gas tank. They're literally blocking my ability to do it. They shut it down. So that, immediately Lexi comes into my brain. So, I pull into Walmart, and I go find a spot. I'm in a distance, and I'm a ways away, and I can just see her standing there. I'm not trying to stare at her, act like I'm stalking her, try not to put any weird in things, but I'm just in my head thinking about these memories, and my intuition is telling me that person is not random. That is somebody literally there, and they know about Lex. That might be Lexi, I don't know, but it might not be. And anyway, it's this person who's there on purpose, and it's because the bad guys everybody who was part of it back in 2018, they know about that shit that happened back then. They know I got robbed $400, and Lexi walked free, and Robert and them walked free, and I have no idea where their life has taken them since then. I have no idea what their life's been. But this energy, all these memories are hitting, just going through. I'm just thinking about all this stuff from the past, and there's literally somebody standing there blocking my ability to go do it. Okay, so big deal. So I'm just sitting there, I'm like, okay, well, maybe, who knows how long she's going to be here? Maybe she's just a neutral person, and it has nothing to do with Lexi. Maybe it's not something that's orchestrated. Okay, I'm not automatically believing that. So I just sit there and just be, okay, well, I'll be patient. Maybe at some point, I'm just going to wait for my turn. I'm going to be a distance away. That way I'm not just hovering on her. I'm going to be a little distance away, but I will be able to see when she walks away, and then I can go take the opportunity to stand out there for an hour and a half, and whatever I can make cool, whatever I can make cool, and then I'll try again tomorrow, but only an hour and a half. So I'm literally sitting there watching, waiting for her to finish, because I'm wondering how long can she sing? And the fact that she's singing at the entrance of a Walmart parking lot was very weird, because if you think about it, most people driving in and out of Walmart, 70-80% of them have their window rolled up. So most people, as they're driving in and out, they're not even going to hear this woman singing. And the fact that they're just driving by real quick or just leaving real quick, whatever she's singing, they're only going to hear a little fragment. So if you're singing and you're trying to have people listen to you sing and trying to have an audience, that is probably the worst possible place you could stand to sing and play guitar. Because anybody you're singing, nobody can hear you. Everybody's just driving in and out. If anything, somebody will just give you money just out of pity or whatever, just because you're standing there, they give you money, but it has nothing to do with your ability to sing or lack thereof. But so I'm going over all this, and I'm not really sure, is this intentional, or is it just a random person who's trying to sing and make money? Okay, big deal if that's what it is. But if it's intentional and it's the bad guys putting someone there to block me, that's fucked up, especially considering you're doing exactly like what Lexi would probably be doing, and all my memories about Lexi are going through my brain. Okay, so I sit there for a little bit, right? I don't know, half an hour, 40 minutes. At some point, she leaves, but right before she leaves, this other guy comes out of nowhere. This other guy who I hadn't seen yet, he comes out of nowhere. They have a small exchange of words, and then she leaves. She walks over and gets in her car. She has her own vehicle. She gets in her car, puts her guitar in the vehicle, and she drives off. Well, this guy that she had just talked to, he goes and he doesn't stand, he just takes the exact position that she was just at, and he literally just lays down in the gravel. He acts like he's somebody who's just like high out of his mind on heroin, or somebody who had given him instructions, but he literally goes and just lays down on the ground right where she was standing and singing, and he just lays there. He wasn't even trying to panhandle. He didn't even have a sign to panhandle. He just lays down in the gravel and just blocks me off, making it so it's impossible for me to go stand out there because he's occupying the whole space. Right? So was that just a coincidence, or is there something more going on? Are you starting to get a little weirded out now? I mean, are some of these things I've talked about, are things starting to connect a little bit? Because I'm not done yet. There are more things that I have to talk about, more weirdness, but I'm wondering now, after I just mentioned all of this, I'm wondering if you're starting to see the big picture. Are things starting to come together a little bit more, or do you believe that I'm delusional and that I'm a schizophrenic and that I got problems? I'm trying to paint the picture for you, and I feel like I've been speaking very clearly, and I'm wondering where you're at now. Are you starting to believe me? Are you starting to see the big picture? And can you see the good versus evil? Can you see how sadistic and fucked up this situation is? Or do you literally believe I'm just a crazy person? I'm literally making all this up. Where are you at right now? Because I have more to share.